Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I am your host, Joe Zollo. The NFL 2024 year is officially here. The legal tampering period, all that bullshit is over. Officially, moves are now official. Even though it felt like it was on Monday and Tuesday, everything is now officially official as of 4 p.m. Eastern today. A lot of stuff, and I'm sure more stuff will pop up throughout this next hour of shows. So we'll break it live on air, but we have a bunch of stuff that has happened over the last 48 to 72 hours in the NFL. Let's get into it. Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I am your host, Joe Zollo. As always, top left, bottom right, Josh and Ryan in that order. And for the first time on NPI, someone who's, just an up-and-comer when you think about it. Has never done much in this industry. We're just really excited to give him a little boost today. Jim Coventry from Rotowire. How are you doing, Jim?
Fantastic. It's free agent season. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, on a little-known spot called Rotowire on Sirius XM. I know none of you have it in your car. So just, small things. Super small things. Super excited to have Jim here. Yeah, we're excited. He said in the pre-show, say his name and he'll talk. So that's
Beetlejuice.
Yeah, essentially. Except you only have to say his name once, and he's already here.
I like it.
So, yeah, it's perfect. So the tampering period, done. Thank God. That's the dumbest thing. The league year should just start on Monday at 9 a.m. They should just have it start then. It's the dumbest thing in the world. And moves were being made before the tampering period even officially began. What even is this? Okay.
Yeah.
We're going position by position, obviously focusing on the fantasy relevant positions: quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end. And then, because Josh needs to keep me on the show, he does have the defensive players listed on the back.
I have some of the bigger contracts listed. Let's rephrase that.
You know what he doesn't have listed, though? Kickers and punters. And that criminal, Jim. Federal.
Big couple days for kickers.
I know.
We had Will Lutz change his mind.
I'm pretty sure Sean Payton was just like, no, you're actually going to get cut from that team. If you stay here, you're not going to get cut.
There you go.
Hey, He pulled a who was the running back last year? It was the third down back from Washington. He was going to go to Buffalo, and then he reneged on it.
J.D. McKissick.
Yep.
Yeah. J.D., wow. Throwback. Good memory there. All right.
I still remember when Frank Gore did that. He was supposed to sign with the Eagles and then went with the Colts.
Dog. Frank Gore, dog. All right. Quarterback position. Some pretty big implications here for a lot of teams. Kirk Cousins being arguably the biggest one. 4 years, $180 million. Fat paycheck for Kirko Chains down in the ATL. Baker Mayfield re-signs with the Bucs, 3 years, $100 million. Russell Wilson signs with the Steelers, 1 year, $1.2 million. You may be asking, that seems really cheap. That seems really cheap. Well, the Broncos owe him $38 million. So Russ can play on a team-friendly contract. Thank God he's going to the Steelers, the perennial 9-8 horses that they are in the AFC North. Ooh. Gardner Minshew, speaking of the AFC, staying in the conference, just going to a different division. Minshew to Las Vegas, 2 years, $25. Another pretty team-friendly contract. He will compete with Aiden O'Connell for the starting job as it is right now, unless the Raiders do go get a quarterback in the draft. Jacoby Brissett, back to the Patriots. Great. Hopefully as a backup to whoever's being picked 3 overall. That's the hope. Sam Darnold to the Vikings. The answer to Kirk Cousins leaving is former 3rd overall pick, Sam Darnold. That's the answer, folks. Vikings fans are ecstatic today. You have no idea. Drew Lock signs with the Giants, 1 year, $5 million. A solid chance that man starts more than half of the games next
I
year.
was just going to say, I just noticed Josh did not put Drew Lock in the notable backups category.
Yeah, there's a very...
I've seen enough NFC East football to know that Drew Lock is going to be starting quite a bit this year.
NFC East, you just need to see like 2 downs of Daniel Jones and know that he's
Right.
starting
Man.
most of this season. Notable backups, Jameis Winston to Cleveland. Surprised he's on the backup list considering Deshaun Watson will either be injured or be a bitch and not want to play because he's already getting paid money. My dad and I looked at his cap hits. I don't know if you guys have looked at this. Have you looked at his dead cap?
Well, they'll never get away from his dead
They
cap. They're going to
can't.
be able to keep kicking the can on his cap hit, but they'll never be able to get away from his dead cap.
His dead cap is like $200 million this year. They can't get out of the contract. If you're a Browns fan or you're somebody like, why are the Browns still have Deshaun Watson? They literally can't get rid of him. They can't. Like, you think the Russell Wilson situation's bad? His situation would be legitimately 6 times worse financially for the
It would
Browns.
change the NFL. Like,
Yes.
It would be insane if they tried
Horrible. Marcus Mariota to the Washington Commanders. Again, as of right now, could very well start week 1. That could very well happen. Tyrod Taylor to the Jets on a 2-year deal. Seems interesting, but Aaron Rodgers only has 1 year left on his deal.
And a potential vice presidency run in his future.
Yeah, but my question is, if he does become vice president, do Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb come with him and serve on the cabinet?
Well, yeah.
It's not even a
Oh,
question.
you
Are
know
you
David
kidding me?
Bakhtiari is getting a place on that one. Come on. Now.
Yeah. Jordy Nelson, Cobb, Greg Jennings will probably get pulled out of the
Yes.
woodwork somewhere. Yeah, 100%. And then the Raiders, RP, officially released Jimmy Garoppolo. You hate to see it. Gardner Minshew, better than Jimmy Garoppolo. Who would have thought?
Gardner Minshew got there and said, get that man out.
I mean, yeah. I think Jimmy Garoppolo
It had
also-
nothing to do with timing.
No, absolutely nothing to do with timing. We will start with Kirk Chains because it feels great for everybody involved. Jim, I'll start with you. Obviously, this feels like an uptick for Drake London. This feels like an uptick for Kyle Pitts. It helps Bijan Robinson. How do you feel?
Well, first you move away from Arthur Smith and you bring
That's
in
big.
Zach Robinson, who has worked with Sean McVay. So you bring in principles of that offense, certainly,
Exactly.
which is going to be a little bit pass friendly, maybe, which might be a great thing. And adding Darnell Mooney was actually a good move as well. We could talk about him at a later point in time, but I think Mooney has been like undersold because of that horrific Bears organization. But back to Cousins.
Thank
For
you,
fantasy,
Jim.
for Cousins, it's lateral. But like you said, Drake London is the big winner here.
Yeah.
His targets were very low for an alpha receiver because of all the running that was done. Kirk Cousins will give him the alpha treatment. That's what'll happen. Drake London, definitely worth that 7th or 8th pick. They used at him a couple of years ago in the draft.
Yeah.
Big bodied receiver. He can win. He can run after the catch, win on many different levels. And Cousins will certainly give him all the targets he can handle. Kyle Pitts, we're very hopeful, right? At this point, we don't know how much of it's Arthur Smith. We heard last year that Pitts' knee may never have been okay. Now we're worried. Hopefully it's not a long-term thing. But if he's at least reasonably healthy, excitement is there. And obviously Bijan Robinson, if you have a fully integrated offense, the goal would be with Robinson to go with 3 receiver sets, 11 personnel, because that would be where his roots were at. In that case, the Falcons need at least another servable receiver, I think, to go along with Mooney and London. But all that said, yes. So wheels up for London for sure. Cousins is still that borderline QB1.
Yep. Yeah, it feels like his situation, I mean, maybe even got a little better, at least with the backs. I mean, obviously Justin Jefferson's insane. But you're looking at 2 dogs, but the guy who can help relieve him and open up the passing game, the running back, I feel like it might even help him a little more moving into this season. Go ahead, Ryan.
Well, I think Jim hit it on the head. I think the second most important move to the Kirk Cousins was getting Darnell Mooney, because we had been laughing at the Atlanta wide receiver 2 situation for months at this point, saying, what were they ever? It was never going to be a good year for Drake London because teams could triple team him. And then you had Desmond Ridder couldn't get him the ball. Like, it was just an ugly situation. Now you have a guy who can damn sure get Drake London the ball, and you have to worry. And if you worry too much about Drake London, you got a guy running a 4.340 on the other side. Like, this just changes things. And we talked about this last year. if Atlanta got a quarterback last year, we said, are they the favorites in the division? Well, they certainly have to be the favorites in the division at this point. Tampa Bay, obviously, Tampa Bay's just re-upping the guys who were already there.
Yeah, they're just running it back.
Yeah, they're an old team getting older.
But they lost Shaq Barrett. They traded Carlton Davis, which honestly is addition by subtraction.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I knew you loved that move.
Yeah, that's addition by subtraction. And they did lose a few. Like, I mean, Shaq Barrett's a loss.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, Atlanta is primed. Like, their defense is good, and they're only going to add to it at 8 or 9 if they want to go defense, or I mean, offensive line. They can add to that too. There's so much they can do with that early pick.
Yeah. There's a lot that could go on. And so, like I said, I think the Cousins move combined with the Mooney move. And then, again, Jim said we're all hopeful for Kyle Pitts. At some point, that becomes insanity because we just are waiting for the other shoe to drop. But, no, I love every bit of this move. And the best way I could put it when I wrote my article on it yesterday was, as good as this is for Atlanta is as bad as this was for Minnesota, because it's just literally the flip of the situation.
Real quick add on Kyle Pitts, and I'm glad you said what you said, Ryan, because when I thought it through, one of the main problems with Kyle Pitts is when he was used, it was on too many deep routes. 99th percentile average depth of target.
Yes.
And it's good to get deep shots, but you need that full menu. You need short, intermediate, you run after the catch. And the way they use Kyle Pitts, when they did use him, they were low percentage catches. It never put him in a position for success. And so, again, there's a lot of questions, but I know that's not going to be the case. It's not going to be him just running downfield routes all day.
Well, let me rewind one more thing, and then I'll finally let Josh talk. But I think the coaching change is something that needs to be considered in all of this as well, because as Jim said, this is all coming from the Sean McVay tree, which Kirk Cousins has played in, and so now you have him moving to a coach that's going to run a much more fantasy-friendly offense. The amount of times over the last 48 hours I've written the words fantasy-friendly, a much more fantasy-friendly offense, and that's all we can ask for in this wonderful game that we like.
Yeah, I mean, if I told you Drake London had 140 targets, Kyle Pitts had 100, Darnell Mooney had 90, and Bijan Robinson was anywhere between 60 and 70 plus 250 carries, would you not be ecstatic about this move? Because all of those signs, and they're pointing at that dot. Like, it's literally right there for the taking. Cousins was on pace last year for 661 pass attempts. Now, granted, that was with a god-awful, horrendous rushing attack that Minnesota put forth last year.
And defense, they were on the field a lot.
Correct, yeah. And this, by all accounts, is a much better defense. Atlanta was very, very good last year. And we've seen Raheem Morris's defenses in LA with the Rams be very good as well. So I would fully expect that to continue for the Falcons. But what I find really interesting with Cousins, when he's had a really, really strong running game, he's typically between 32 and 35 pass attempts. He's not going the route of 40 or on pace for 660 pass attempts. So maybe the high amount of target share for some of these people isn't like Justin Jefferson levels of like 190 targets in a year. But I still think that if Drake London comes out with 140 targets, that's probably a top 12 wide receiver season, I would think, right? I mean, he can dominate in the red zone, which we've seen Justin Jefferson struggle in the red zone. Drake London can be really good in the red zone. We know what Bijan Robinson can do. There's a lot of really, really good things to like about this move from a fantasy football's perspective, and I am 1,000% bought into it. I don't even care if they go 4-13. Just give me all the Kirk Cousins in Atlanta.
So hear me out. They put Kyle Pitts outside opposite Drake London. They put Darnell Mooney in the slot, and they keep Brock Bowers home, and they draft him at 8. Doesn't that feel? Go Falcons, baby.
The bad part is, though, Kyle Pitts is not great on the outside. People think it's like
he's not great anywhere.
Some myth. But he's going to have accurate footballs thrown his way this year. That's the big difference. The thing is like he's a mismatch when he's lined up in line and then in the slot when he has to play either linebackers or corners. When you put him on the outside, corners are only getting taller. And most of them all run 4.3s and 4.4s. So he's not the mismatch on the outside that he is when he's in line or in the slot.
All right, fine.
So
put Mooney
Mooney
outside,
really
put
should
him in the
be
slot.
kind of sliding on the outside. Truthfully,
Yeah, great. All I'm hearing is Bowers is still going to the Falcons at 8. That's what I'm getting out of this whole
Gotta get past the Chargers at 5 first.
out of this whole conversation. Quick bite. I want to hear from Ryan and Jim if you'd like to butt in on Gardner Minshew. But Ryan, your boy, it's your man.
And we called it. I said I don't even care what happens with the football now. Gardner Minshew in Las Vegas. Just have a film crew with it. Hard Knocks. Just the whole season. Gardner Minshew living in Las Vegas is all I really care about. But for the team, I was looking. Gardner Minshew, who did not start every game last year, only had, I think, I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head, 350 fewer yards and 4 fewer touchdowns than Raiders QB combined. So Minshew with 17 games with these guys, I think it's got to be a breath of fresh air for Davante Adams and Jacoby Myers. They have Michael Mayer there. The Luke Getsy, say what you will about him, he involves the tight end. Gardner Minshew comes from a system that involves the tight end. They just brought someone in not even like 2 hours ago, and I forget who it is now. So there will be a little competition for Mayer. But regardless, I think we're going to see better things out of that offense. Harrison Bryant, who I love, don't know about that landing spot.
No competition, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say. So Mayer versus Bryant there. And then you don't know if it's going to be Zamir White. You figure they're probably going to get a more established running back at some point. I think it's going to be a fun offense. They're not going to win their division. I mean, Gardner Minshew is now the best quarterback in the division. But they're not going to win their division. But no, I love this move for the Raiders, specifically just seeing Davante Adams, who took a huge hit in yardage last year, a huge hit in yards per catch. I think Gardner Minshew is going to become in there. He's a gunslinger, plain and simple. It's not always going to work out great for fantasy. It's something where Gardner Minshew for fantasy is going to make those around him better, but I still don't want him really as my fantasy quarterback unless we're talking super flex.
Any thoughts on Minshew, Jim?
He completed 62% of his passes last year, and that's with the genius Shane Steichen running the offense. And believe me, no offense to Gardner Minshew, but the fact that this team was borderline playoff team, it has all to do with Steichen, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say enough good about him. And that said, 15 touchdowns, 9 picks. These were not great numbers.
Correct.
Now you're going to go to Las Vegas, and now you don't have Shane Steichen. You probably don't have the running game, and I know Jonathan Taylor missed time, but you don't have the running game. It's going to be interesting to see because usually the book on Gardner Minshew has been that he'll play well for a few games, and then when film comes out and what the offense wants to do and his role in it, things get taken away, and Minshew usually doesn't have a second answer for that. And that's it's hard to disagree with you, Ryan, because he has Myers and he has Adams, so he will get the ball to them. So there's that. I just hope the coaching is enough to keep him on the rails, Gardner Minshew, because it goes off very easily unless you have that Shane Steichen level of coaching.
I also think we're going to see a test of Luke Getsy this year. Gardner Minshew has been a statue since his rookie year. Like, I went and looked at those numbers and was shocked because after his rookie year, we were talking about this guy as one of those mid-level, like mobile rushing quarterbacks. That stopped immediately. Yep. And I don't know what changed. I almost want to go back and look at that second year in Jacksonville and see if he took a hit or something where he just stopped. And Luke Getsy is coming from working with Justin Fields. And now you're just going to a flat out statue. And like I said, it's going to be a big test for him. And are we saying Luke Getsy can't stand up to Shane Steichen?
I'll give one little thing in Getsy's defense, and it's not comparing him to Steichen because they're obviously nowhere close. And that was your point, Ryan. But I will say at least Getsy was like middle of the pack in play action, a little better than middle of the pack in pre-snap motion. And those are things that give quarterbacks information. It gives you the man in the zone reads. It gives you other opportunities to freeze defenders, to get the defense put in conflict. So Getsy at least was above average in those. So if you give Minshew a little more information, again, it's not going to be Steichen, but at least Getsy shouldn't be a detriment.
Love
it. It's weird to hear like the rational side of a Gardner Minshew talk on this show because we're completely
we needed this, Jim. There was a reason that we brought you on this show.
Well, Joe, you'll love this. I opened my Minshew article with, I am an unabashed Gardner Minshew fan. I am sorry ahead of time. After I wrote the article, it was so rational, I deleted that line. I was like, my fandom did not show at all because like I'm writing this and I'm like, I'm not going to lead these people astray. Like this is not the great move for Minshew that you want it to be.
Look at
Wow.
you being an actual fantasy
What a
analyst
guy.
for a
I felt
change.
like I said, I wrote the line and I was like, I have to go delete that because that is not the tone of this article.
Personally, I'm disappointed in you, but
I figured you would be.
good for you. Good for you. All right, running backs. A lot of pretty high profile moves here at the running back position.
And they
It
got
was all
paid,
on the
which
first day.
yeah, and they got paid. We all said they were not going to get paid.
Yeah,
Yeah, because they all regressed last year.
Yeah.
they made a little bit of money. Josh Jacobs to the Packers, 4 for 48. He has the richest he's the longest contract, richest total.
Did you see the details on that though? It's a 1-year deal with 3 consecutive team options to get out of it. So,
That checks out.
Yeah.
Checks out. Saquon Barkley to the Eagles, 3 for 37.5. I don't remember hearing anybody saying Saquon was going to the Eagles. So that was a surprise.
If I had money, it would have been on Houston. It came out that Saquon was already in contact with the quarterback he wanted to play with, and then like a day later, it was about Saquon and Stroud were friends with one another. I'm like, dude, all the tea leaves scream Houston. So a lot of smoke, no fire.
To me, it was just a giant double bird
Yeah.
to the Giants organization on the way out.
And then he gets to whoop their ass twice a year. Oh, man, you know he's happy.
DeAndre Swift to the Bears, 3 for 24. Same contract goes to Tony Pollard to the Titans. Devin Singletary to the Giants. Ryan gets his wish that the running back follows the coach, as he always just proceeds to guess in our shows. Singletary to the Giants. Derrick Henry, the king, going to the Ravens, 2 for 16. That was talked about on our running back show. Antonio Gibson to the Patriots, 3 for 11.5, goes to Rot and Die up in Massachusetts. Austin Eckler to the Commanders they handed him a bag of smart food and said, this is all you're getting.
Yeah.
2 for 8.43. Feels like just a weird number. Like we were really haggling over that 0.43.
Give that man his 30,000.
Yeah, like come on. Aaron Jones released by the Packers when Josh Jacobs was signed, and then he goes and signs with the Vikings. So, hey, double bird to the Packers on the way out. Why not? Gus Edwards goes from John to Jim, goes to the Chargers, 2 for 6.5. Zach Moss to the Bengals, 2 for 8, which then proceeded to immediately cut Joe Mixon, technically. Then he was traded.
Yeah.
So they didn't really cut him.
So they didn't cut him. But they did, but then they didn't. So shout out to the legal tampering period. So stupid. Traded to the Texans. So now the Texans have 2 of the least efficient running backs in the NFL in Dameon Pierce and Joe Mixon.
You love to see it.
Nyheim Hines to the Browns, 1 for 3.5. Just a million times better Jerome Ford. So that's great for the Browns. And DJ Dallas to the Cardinals. He deserves 3 years. I didn't think he even deserved a half a season. DJ Dallas, 3 years to the Cardinals. He stays in division. So, great. There you go. He stays in division to tell the Cardinals all the secrets on why the Seahawks are beating them. I got 3 guys highlighted, and I'm going to do 3 separate takes here. Jim, I'm going to give you your pick of the litter. I'm going to give Josh Saquon because he's the Eagles fan. But between Josh Jacobs and Derrick Henry, talk to me about one of them. Your choice, dealer's choice.
I'm going to go with Derrick Henry here. So when we talk about Derrick Henry, I want to point out a couple of very important points because we know back 2020, he was a 5-yard per carry back. And the last 2 years, he's been a 4-yard per carry back. And a lot of people will want to say, well, age, abuse, all these things that wear a running back down. Not so fast. Derrick Henry has actually shown that it was a bad offensive line. There was no threat of a passing game. He always saw the attention, but he had a favorable line. He had a decent coach for a while with Arthur Smith, and for a while he had A.J. Brown at least to clear out some defenses. So he didn't have any of that. But the point about Derrick Henry is his broken tackle rate is still at an extremely high level, over 77th percentile. His yards after contact as both a runner and a receiver were in the 86th percentile. So Derrick Henry is still playing at a high level. He just didn't have the numbers to back it up. And the big difference for him. And I know that the Ravens, John Simpson's not a big deal at guard, but Morgan Moses was a good blocker. They got rid of both of them. So that line takes a little hit. But overall, you've got the hyper-mobile quarterback in Lamar Jackson with RPO base. And we talk about this all the time. You have the high-level RPO quarterback, and when they have that move, the linebackers freeze for a nanosecond, and it gives the better running backs. That's a nanosecond is a ton of time for a running back. So Derrick Henry is going to have opportunity here. And remember, last year, there were times he did not play half the snaps. Tyjae Spears sometimes had 54%. Henry still had 280 carries. So I think a similar workload is in line here. I know Jackson over the years has been a touchdown scorer. They backed off of that a little bit. So Henry's still in play for double-digit touchdowns. I think that yards per carry doesn't get back to 5, but I think it moves up in the 4.6, 4.7 area because the situation's so much better.
Anything else to add, anybody, on Derrick Henry?
I think the main thing is we always want to cry about there not being enough, receptions in Baltimore for running backs, but Derrick Henry doesn't need those. So it's a perfect fit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the better screen running backs in the league. So, I mean, let's roll with it. I'm all about it. I think this is a great fit. I mentioned it on our running back preview show. Like, this is one of the locations that I thought made the most sense. This is where Titans greats go to rejuvenate their careers and extend their careers. Sign me up, baby. Let's roll.
I'm just very excited for Derrick Henry to get 6 carries in the AFC divisional round as the team throws 75 times and loses because John Harbaugh. Ryan, you have been gifted with Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great fit, plain and simple. This is a young, up-and-coming team. Jordan Love is only going to get better. We're seeing great growth from their wide receivers core. Jaden Reed looks like he is the real deal. 2 excellent tight ends drafted last year. Tight ends tend to help the running game. And now you have Josh Jacobs, who, as of now, is the only running back. They're clearly not going – I mean, here's the thing. I was going to say they're clearly not going to give him every carry, but we've seen him basically get every carry for the last 2 seasons. When you look at, rushing yards, rushing touchdowns since 2019 – Josh Jacobs is behind Derrick Henry as the best back in the NFL over the last 4 seasons. And so really, this is a great fit as long as he's willing to go there. And this is going to sound, dramatic, but go there and kind of just die for them. Like, run as many times as they can give him the ball. I don't think we're necessarily going to see more passing game work. We saw a step back in Aaron Jones's passing game work. The Packers throw the ball to the running back just about as much as the Raiders threw the ball to the running back. So I think it's going to be a pretty lateral move for Josh Jacobs, especially with the touchdowns we saw him score 2 years ago, or last year rather, not 2023, 2022. I think we could see him very much do what he did a few years ago. That's a top 10 running back, top 5 running back. That's nothing to blink your eyes at, and he's not going to go that high in any fantasy draft. So I think Josh Jacobs is going to be a value come August when we're picking our teams. He's the guy you're likely going to be able to land in the 3rd, sometimes even the 4th round if people don't have the right taste in their mouth, and we're going to eat that up.
Ryan.
So.
Ooh, you're telling me I can get Josh Jacobs as my 3rd running back?
I was going to say, I don't know if he falls that far, but
let's call it 3rd then. Maybe not that, but I think and fantasy analysts are a little bit to blame for this. We've put a nasty taste in people's mouth for older running backs, but Jacobs is what? 26?
He'll be 26 when
like he has plenty of 30. 30 is when they get old now. I'm like, let's remember that number. And obviously that makes me feel terrible, but regardless, 30 is when they get old.
How old are you, just for the record?
I'm a couple years past that. slightly past my prime at this point. There's plenty of tread left on Josh Jacobs' tires. He's not a guy. He missed 4 games last year with injury. Nothing to be very, very concerned about. I would love for them to get a second back. But we were saying that same thing where we would love to have seen Zamir White on the field. And, it worked out pretty well for Josh Jacobs.
I have a quick announcement before moving further. We have movement on the NFL Comeback Player of the Year. Joe Flacco has officially reached an agreement with the Indianapolis Colts.
Great move.
A 1-year deal worth $8.7 million, 4.5 guaranteed.
The story
Flacco
of Joe
to the
Flacco.
Colts.
They made that Kurt Warner movie. They're going to be making a Joe Flacco movie in the next 5 years. The story of Joe Flacco is incredible.
How about that for Michael Pittman? Because I imagine they're doing this because they assume A-Rich won't be ready for week
Oh,
one.
no. He's going to be ready. They're worried about week
Well,
4 when he's no longer ready.
This is true. This is true. But
Jim?
if he comes in, that's Michael Pittman looks real nice if Joe Flacco's coming in right there. Any quick thoughts on that?
It doesn't make sense. Why do you have a mobile quarterback and you bring in a statue as the backup? You got to change your offense. And at least Minshew, for what it was worth, Minshew's not like a super mobile quarterback, but he could do some RPO things. Joe Flacco? No. I mean, Stefanski was
Jim.
number 1 in play action. It was perfect for him. Now, I know Steichen, again, will roll aces, but why? They could have gotten maybe Tyrod Taylor, a guy with a little bit of mobility. Get somebody in there who could actually simulate your offense in case Richardson does have a season ender, but misses a couple games. That's my only sticking point.
Steichen worked with Phillip Rivers with the Chargers. He can craft his offense however he needs to.
You mean the mobile god, Phillip Rivers?
Yep.
Put some respect on that man.
And I'm talking more about the preseason install.
Yeah.
You go through a preseason, you install an entire offensive suite. And when you have to go to a different quarterback, you can't reinstall an entire offense. Yeah, Steichen could call plays, but the whole set of concepts you worked on in August for all those 2-a-days, not that they do those anymore, but all the extended practice time. And then you'd have to change your offense. That's the only question I have.
It's something we've hit on numerous times. It was something recently where we're like, why is this the move you're deciding to make? And I don't know.
I'm here for it. We're gonna get him to an Indy Fuel game, and that's what we're going for. We're getting him to an Indy Fuel game. My coworker is a giant Ravens fan, so we're gonna make that. We're gonna make that happen for her.
My
So,
goodness, that's awesome.
yeah. And now to arguably the most talented guy in free agency this year. Josh, your Eagles landed Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, this is an absolute smash for me. And apparently it came out that when, they're going through the process, trying to, pinpoint how they want to attack free agency, Kellen Moore targeted Saquon Barkley, which to me is pretty glaring considering he once had Tony Pollard.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there. But Saquon, this is just an absolute smash, as I said. Kellen Moore offenses throw a ton. Since 2019, they average 37.131 pass attempts, 39.94, 38.06. 2022, where Dak got hurt, was down to 32.7. 2023 was 37 with Justin Herbert. Now, this is what I find really interesting, though. When Kellen Moore took over as the offensive coordinator, Dak Prescott was entering year 3 as the starter. He had just completed his 3rd season where he'd thrown just over 32 pass attempts per year and then jumped all the way up to 37.25 for Dak. Guess how many pass attempts per game Jalen Hurts had last year? 32. Correct.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think Jalen Hurts throwing the football is the answer for that team.
It may not be the answer, but he can throw it. That's the thing. We also once thought that Dak Prescott throwing the football a ton wasn't going to be the answer. Dallas is still winning games regardless of whether they win in the playoffs or not. They're winning regular season games, and they're putting up big numbers for fantasy. Jalen Hurts has that capability. Add to that the amount of rushing work that he brings that Dak doesn't. Jalen Hurts is still going to be a top 2 fantasy quarterback, in my opinion. So this is great news. But when it comes to Barkley in this offense, Kellen Moore still targets the running back position between 15 and 18% of the time. And Saquon averages just over the last 3 years, 4.38, 4.75, and 4.3 targets per game. Like, he's going to see targets because that is the offense. You can sit here and talk about how mobile quarterbacks don't target their running backs. That has typically been Nick Sirianni's system. With Kellen Moore coming in, Nick Sirianni's system goes bye-bye. And thank God, because it sucks. And I'm over it. Because Steichen was the real answer to that offense, and Nick Sirianni is not. But this is my favorite stat that has been circling around when it comes to Saquon Barkley. Last year, the Giants had the 31st ranked run block win rate among offensive lines. That is second to last. And Saquon still had over 1,000 total yards. The Eagles were the top-ranked team in run block win rate. Saquon has never run behind a quality offensive line. Wheels motherfucking up, baby.
Dang. R.I.P. Saquon's knee, though, in week 3, because that just feels like what
Shut
it's
up.
timed up to be
Oh.
at this time. No. It's a good move. Plain and simple, he gets behind a very good offensive line for himself.
He's also never had wide receivers like A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith taking pressure off the running.
Are you telling me Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard didn't do the job? How about Richie James and Isaiah Hodgins in the slot? No? Nothing? Didn't he have Darren Waller last year?
He had Wan'Dale Robinson for like 6 games. I don't know what Josh is talking about.
6 games over 2 years, right? Over 2 seasons.
Yeah,
That's what it was.
like that.
Another quick thing: Jonah Williams, former Bengals offensive line, signs with the Arizona Cardinals, so they get a little help on their offensive line.
So that takes over. The Cardinals had just cut DJ Humphries, who tore his ACL late in the year, so that'll be a good fill-in opposite Paris Johnson for them. That's not bad.
Yep.
Yeah.
Moving to the receiver position. Tee Higgins requested a trade from the Bengals after being franchise tagged. Very interesting. Mike Evans re-signs with the Bucks, 2 for $41. Feels kind of cheap for a top-tier receiver, you may be saying. Well, that's because he's getting $13 million from his contract last year. So he'll be making about $35 million this year. So not a bad deal for Mike Evans. Michael Pittman re-signs with the Colts, 3 for $70. Big game Gabe, baby. Look out. 3 for $39 in Jacksonville.
Burning money down there.
Really? Gabe Davis. That's the answer? That's the answer. We're gonna lose. We're gonna lose Calvin Ridley. I saw people saying Gabe Davis was gonna be the one in that offense. I'm like, are you high? Have we not seen Christian Kirk the last 2 seasons? Darnell Mooney.
He might end up playing the X, but he's not going to be the wide receiver 1. No, absolutely not.
Yeah. Darnell Mooney to the Falcons, 3 for $39, same contract as Gabe Davis, as mentioned earlier. Kendrick Bourne back with the Patriots, 3 for $19.5. Awesome contract. Love that. Devontae Parker, honestly, the best move so far in free agency. Devontae Parker was released by the Patriots. Do you want to know how much they hated Devontae Parker? Keeping him or releasing him, same cap hit. It didn't save them money. So you want to know what happens? The Eagles are like, you know who we need to, AJ Brown needs some time on the bench. You need some breathers. Devonta Smith gets winded very easily. He's a toothpick. You know who we want to bring in?
I hate
Devontae Parker, 1 year, $4.7 million. Look out, baby. That's the best move the Eagles have made so far this offseason. Devontae Parker. Diontae Johnson traded to the Panthers. Josh says, I'm going to go die now. So RIP. Jim, Josh is a day one Diontae Johnson, lover. So it's been a rough day for him. The Raiders release Hunter Renfrow so he can go to his rightful home in New England where he should have been drafted. The Chargers officially release Mike Williams because they realized anytime Mike Williams, when he's not playing on a contract year or not in Arrowhead Stadium, sucks. So that saves them $20 million. And Calvin Ridley, 4 years, $92 million to not the Jaguars, not the New England Patriots, the Tennessee Titans. You may be asking, Joe, normally you have funny taglines below your name on the show. Well, you see Titans plus 1,800. Now, I can't take credit for this joke. I saw it on Twitter 2 minutes before I joined the stream. Somebody said, well, Calvin Ridley was technically unemployed for at least an hour by the NFL. And he was allowed to bet technically, and the Titans had plus 1,800 odds. Now, I'm not saying that he did it.
I'm not saying he didn't.
I'm not saying he didn't. Again, I can't take credit for that joke. I just saw that. I added more onto it because obviously Twitter has so many characters to add. But yeah, Calvin Ridley to the Titans because fuck it, why not, right? Let's start though. Actually, let's start there because that seems like the dumbest thing ever. That doesn't make any sense. Jim, can you say any nice words about Calvin Ridley on the Titans?
He's back to being a number 2.
That's big. Okay. I like that.
Because when we go back the year before he was suspended, it was the first year without Julio Jones, and he played 5 games. He had some mental health issues that year, so we never really knew for sure if he was doing okay and well enough to play. So we didn't really know. And then this past year, he was the number 1 in Jacksonville, but Press Taylor was one of the worst play designers I've ever seen. It was like a few different games where he actually took Ridley, would put him into stack formations, would put him in motion. And oh my goodness, when they did, he actually produced. But then when Press Taylor went back to static play calling and putting Ridley like kind of on an island and more downfield routes, it didn't work. So I don't know what Ridley is at this point, but I do know that even though DeAndre Hopkins is 32, and I don't know how much passing they're going to do, and I don't know what Will Levis is at this point. I tend to think he's more of a project. But that said, he has a big arm. And if DeAndre Hopkins is still likely going to command the main treatment of defenses, you could get Ridley back in that downfield role. Now, he's going to be 30 late this season, so he's already aging fast. But at least for this year, 4-year deal, I think that's kind of nuts, which is why he went there. You're going to take that 4-year. I don't know what the year by year stuff is, but that said, I see him back in that deep threat role.
Fair.
I just don't understand the story Tennessee is telling. We had Andrew Cooper on our show, the Dynasty or the mock draft show on Monday, and Cooper used a really good Dynasty analogy, and it made me think about what Tennessee is doing now, and that is, if you're going to go young guys, stick with young guys. Make sure your team's telling a story. You don't want to mix. So Tennessee is going with a project at quarterback, Will Levis. They're moving on from Derrick Henry, but yet we have a 32 and a 30-year-old wide receiver. Like, what story are you telling right now? Because this isn't the rebuild story. And I'm sure Brian Callahan didn't come over here to like be terrible, but this is not, I don't understand what they're doing, plain and simple. I like Calvin Ridley as a player, and I agree wholeheartedly with Jim. He fits well into a number 2 role. And this could be a successful season if Will Levis is able to get the ball out.
Oh, and you just spent a first-round pick 2-3 years ago on a receiver that is just simply not working. So
I thought you were talking about AJ Brown, and it just clicked for me. Oh no, you mean Traylon
Burks.
How bad is that? I forgot Traylon Burks
was a Titan.
Sorry, Britt. I forgot he existed. I have him on fantasy teams.
Like literally absolutely insane.
This is what I find interesting, though. If you were to just look on paper, take Tennessee out of the equation, you look on paper and you say, all right, I've got Tony Pollard. I've got Tajay Spears in the backfield. I've got DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley at wide receiver. You would be pretty damn excited about that offense, right?
Who's a quarterback?
That's exactly my point. We don't know what the hell Will Levis is. We really don't.
He's a guy.
If he ends up taking like a big sophomore leap, though, wheels up. The Titans could compete. I mean, their defense is going to hold them back, but their offense will be fun to watch.
You know, you mentioned Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard. In my mind, they're redundant. They're the same type of back.
The exact same player.
Correct.
Tony Pollard thrived.
Has ACLs. That's the only difference.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yes, 100% correct. We saw Tony Pollard thrive when we had Zeke as the early down back. And I talk about this frequently. When you have a bigger back, a grinder back, and the defense plays at that speed. When the change-up running back comes in, the defense doesn't say, hey, time to play fast, Pollard's field. It doesn't work that way. Muscle memory is not like that. That's why we see year after year, the change of pace guys come in, and they are incredible. And then you put him in a situation like last year. Pollard was the guy. Well, defenses are playing at a speed. All of a sudden, not so good. But now they don't have a grinder back. Yeah, Julius Chestnut, they brought him back. Don't know what that's going to be. Probably not much. But all that said, they have two basically change-up backs now.
It doesn't make any sense. Now, I mean, unless Tennessee wants to go get an Audric Estime, a Jonathan Brooks, like if they want to get a giant body. But then you saw Tajay Spears play well. Why would you go and spend money on Pollard? So they're probably just going to rock Pollard and Spears, which doesn't make sense. So Yeah.
And there's also, we don't even know what kind of play caller Brian Callahan is. Like we know he's coming from the Zach Taylor system, but
I don't even know who Brian
plays.
Callahan is. Actually, that's it's insane. Actually, it's funny you say we don't know like how he calls plays. I didn't know he existed as a human
Didn't know
until
he was the head coach until one of us said it.
Yeah, I mean,
Man, when they said he got hired, I thought it was Bill Callahan, his dad, the offensive line coach, at first. And I was like, oh, wait a minute.
I just sounded like another white dude from like Silicon Valley. I don't know. I feel like he was trying to sell me something like that. Just
well, hey, he sold himself to the Titans. So look at that.
Fucking apparently. I mean, Mike Vrabel couldn't do it. So call next guy up, Brian Callahan, calling from the pen. 7th guy off the bench. Josh, I have to know how you feel inside about Diontae Johnson going to the Panthers. I have to know.
I was struggling a little bit yesterday. I'm like, why are you guys trying to do my man dirty like this? Like sending him off to the worst fucking team in the league. Like, come on.
Yeah.
And then I kind of like, I let it all sink in. And I'm sure this is just me letting the Twitterverse like help me build my confidence back up in Diontae Johnson. But he knows how to command targets. He's done it for years. He has several 140+ yard target seasons on his resume. He's topped 1,000 yards. He's been a number 1 wide receiver. He's just been hampered with terrible quarterback play and terrible offensive play callers. We know that Dave Canales has done a really good job of calling plays the last couple of years with Tampa and then with Seattle before that. So the thing that I find most interesting, though, is Diontae Johnson is not the number 1 type receiver that he has had in those systems, right? Like he had DK Metcalf, he had Mike Evans. Those are bigger guys. Diontae's not very big. He's like 5'10", 180 if he's lucky. So, but the one thing that Diontae does really well and on par with some of the top 10 best in the league is he can separate. And he is really damn good at that. The one thing that I've talked about on this show numerous times is that a lot of these young quarterbacks struggle when they have wide receivers that cannot separate because they are scared to throw into tight windows. Bryce Young has never truly been scared to throw into tight windows, but he didn't really show that last year because of the quality of receivers that he had.
Well, he also couldn't see the tight windows. He's too short.
Well, there's that too. But the two things. Go ahead, Ryan.
Horizontal because the offensive line was terrible.
Yeah,
exactly. What did the Panthers do? They went and they beefed up the interior of their offensive line to keep that pressure away from him and more on the outside so that he can step up in those pockets and do more of that anticipatory throws. That should help when it comes to throwing to Diontae Johnson. I don't know that he's going to be that have the type of season that Adam Thielen had. I feel like he should, but I also know that Bryce Young has already started to build that rapport with Adam Thielen. So there's obviously a certain level of trust there. But unless Adam Thielen absolutely falls off a cliff and can't play 17 games next year, which would hardly be surprising since he's 34 years old, we could very well see that for Diontae Johnson. And I think really his ceiling is a wide receiver 2, even if he's only going to be drafted as like a wide receiver 4.
Any other thoughts on Diontae Johnson? Anybody?
Just to kind of add on to what Josh is saying, this feels like a situation because of the rapport built with Thielen and red zone rapport that we read about all last preseason and saw a little bit in the season. This feels like another situation where Diontae Johnson could go for 160 targets and no touchdowns. Like it's scary, but it's something that feels like it's in the realm of possibility.
160 targets, 95 catches, 0 touchdowns. That checks out.
Adam Thielen, he put the numbers up last year, and I'll give him that. And we saw for 2 to 3 years prior to last year that Adam Thielen was in steep decline. Whatever happened last year, yes, he became the number 1 in that offense, and obviously he was reliable. He was where he was supposed to be, and that helped Bryce Young because as you're running through your play, okay, well, this is where it's supposed to be. He's there. Fine, make the throw. We can't look away from the fact another few months have passed. Thielen's older. He's closer. Last year was an anomaly. That came out of nowhere. That player was not existent in 2022 or even 2021. My guess he's more likely that end of the road player. And Diontae Johnson, like you guys mentioned, and I think Josh mentioned for sure, the separation, the ability to get open very, very quickly. That's still going to be needed, and that's what Bryce Young's best friend is going to be. I'm a little more optimistic on Diontae Johnson in this situation because Adam Thielen will become less reliable as time passes.
I think it's going to be interesting to see who they get to fill the role DJ Chark kind of set up for the team last year. Chark, a guy I've always liked, 6'3", 200 pounds, and was fast, could do things on the outside. That's not what they're bringing Diontae Johnson to do. We just said it ain't going to be Adam Thielen. And to be honest, it's not really Jonathan Mingo's game. So are they now going to be adding another receiver in here who's going to do something else for the team? So, or maybe Chark comes back. He hasn't signed anywhere yet. So it could be interesting just to see him come back because there's a little rapport there as well. But he didn't have a terrible season last year. I think either, 65 targets and still caught 5 touchdowns.
Healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem.
Nice
That's
season
the
for
DJ
him.
Chark story.
Yes, and that's why he's been on 4 teams in 4 years. So no, I'd love to see DJ Chark maybe back there. I just don't see who's going to fill that role. But Jim's right. I think the target volume, because let's not forget, Adam Thielen was also a target hog last year because he was all there was. So now you have a wide receiver who can actually get open and do it. So no, I think it's probably certainly in PPR, Diontae Johnson all over my radar. I'll take him around ahead of ADP every time.
And DJ Chark, let's see him on the Chiefs.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
On our wide receiver show, Jim, I got made fun of and yelled at because every wide receiver I was like, man, I'd like to see him on the Chiefs.
He's affordable. I think that's the best thing to do with that.
The best quality for Kansas City right now. So.
We all know the wide receiver that belongs on the Chiefs, and his name is Mike Williams. Okay.
Yep.
He's literally had
Plays well in Arrowhead.
the best games of his career are in Arrowhead.
Yeah.
That's not even subjective. Statistically, they're just the best games of his career in Arrowhead. So, God, I hope not. I don't even want to talk about it. Mike Williams should be in Kansas City. That's the talk on Mike Williams. Is he should be in Kansas City. And they should sign him to a 1-year deal so that way it's a contract year. So they'd be smart. So he'd actually play well in that season. Go back, look at Mike Williams. The only good year he's ever had was the contract year. If you've watched the show from the beginning, I warned you about that every fucking time. I said, don't draft Mike Williams. Guy's a bum. He only plays well in contract year. That has continued. Mike Williams is a bum, and that will continue. Clemson receiver. Sorry. Josh and Ryan both laugh at me because he does play well when he's healthy. But here's the thing:
I like Mike Williams so much, and you just are so mean.
Hold on. When are the only times I tell people to play Mike Williams? In Arrowhead. Yes, in Arrowhead and contract years. That's the only times I ever tell people to play Mike Williams.
Just for those out there who think we're just complete haters. We acknowledge that 9 times out of 10, when he's getting hurt, it's making some spectacular catch.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's going like 12 feet in the air, jumping over a 6-foot cornerback to do it. He's like, for his size, is just very skinny and he doesn't have good bone structure. So
didn't drink enough milk.
Yeah, he doesn't drink enough milk. That's what it is. Tight ends. Notice.
Hold on, I want to go back real quick.
Nope.
Because we didn't really talk about Tee Higgins. I actually just want to get Jim's opinion on something. Okay. Not even necessarily Tee Higgins. Any smoke or fire on this Justin Jefferson trade, you think?
I tend to think not. I think that the Vikings organization, I know the state they're in right now and they don't have a quarterback. It doesn't mean they won't have a quarterback by week 1, and I don't know what they can do to that. But that said, it would be a really bad move by the organization to move away from Jefferson. And maybe they do. A.J. Brown was traded. We know that. So it can happen. And I can't say the general manager's name from Minnesota, but the dude's sharp. The dude is pretty sharp. And I just don't see him. It would have to be a Godfather offer, and I don't know that he's getting it at this point. But the Tee Higgins thing is interesting because what running backs don't have leverage. Barkley and Jacobs last year tried to do their little holdout. They both got less than $1 million for their troubles. That's chump change. Well, receivers, it's a different story. He could say, I'm not signing it. I'm not showing up. Now the Bengals go in the season with no Tee Higgins. They don't want that. And that gives Higgins some leverage. So it's going to be problematic because I could see him missing games if it comes down to it because he's in that position. So if you're drafting early, I really don't want any part of it unless the draft stock goes really, really low, which it won't. But it's an ugly situation, and I don't know that it gets resolved. Now, is there any chance them getting rid of Mixon cleared up some money that might help them get Higgins? I don't know, but I'm not optimistic.
So I don't think Tee Higgins has leverage. Yes, Tyler Boyd's not on contract, but he's going to be cheaper than Tee Higgins, and he's played in Cincy his whole career, so he'd probably take a hometown discount. Tyler Boyd is a wide receiver too, could be as efficient, if not more efficient, than Tee Higgins. And then you have Yoshivas and Charlie Jones, who have been talked about and hyped up by Zach Taylor. So I don't think Tee Higgins has leverage, personally.
Falling for the coach speak? Come on now, Joe.
I'll say I don't think Tyler Boyd's outplaying Tee Higgins. So.
Boyd has had 2 drop-offs in his career already. About 5 years ago, he's coming off a pair of 1,000-yard seasons. Then he moved down to like an 800-yard receiver. And then the last couple of years, I believe it's in the 600 or 700 range.
Well,
he's had a couple of teardrops already.
He's playing behind Tee Higgins.
No, last year he played 5 more games than Higgins and only had 11 more yards.
Listen. I don't think Tee Higgins has
You're
leverage.
wrong.
I don't think he does. I don't think he has leverage. And he should play because he's been injured. So you might want to play to gain a contract, which, again,
I think it's the complete opposite. If he's been injured, he wants his money now because he doesn't want to risk going back out there to get re-injured and not get the bag.
I agree.
I
said
am always
this.
on the side of players getting paid. So get your money, man.
Well, they don't have the money to pay him. They don't.
Every team has the money to pay.
I was just going to say, they'll find
Ask
it.
the Saints.
Yeah, right.
The Saints haven't paid anybody yet. They do not have the.
They'll be paying Taysom Hill for the rest of his life.
They will. They will.
If there was an
don't.
NFL team that ever would threaten the idea of filing for bankruptcy, it would be the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, right.
How
So
much money they are backloading in contracts.
so perfect timing here to talk about how the Bengals don't have money and now they have less money to spend on Tee Higgins. They are closing in on an agreement with Sheldon Rankins, so that'll take up some cap space. And I can guarantee you Sheldon Rankins ain't going to be cheap. He'll probably be around $6 or $7 million a year.
In Houston last year.
Yeah, probably $6 or $7 million a year on the low end. So
yeah, he'll take DJ Reader's spot, right?
He will take DJ Reader's spot and not be as good as DJ Reader.
Certainly not against the run.
No, certainly not against the run. But that's less money to pay Tee Higgins. So unless Duke Tobin has some cap crafty stuff he's going to deal with, I don't think it's going to happen. I think Tee Higgins is probably not a Bengal this coming season. So,
all right. So where do you think he goes then?
Fucking New Orleans. There we go. We just talked about that. He goes to the Saints.
There you go.
No,
You know where I'd like to
every
see
fucking team needs a receiver. So,
him? You know where I'd like to see him?
Kansas City.
Kansas City, baby.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago on the wide receiver preview show. It's like the teams that he realistically fits with, they're rivals. They're competing with Cincy at the top of the AFC, right? It's
Okay,
Buffalo.
They're going to make that trade.
Chicago.
Could-
Yeah.
would
6
Chicago
million
make
in
that
cap
move, though?
space. 56 million in cap space.
Yeah. What about
They have the picks to give up.
they have the picks to give up?
Do
Mhm.
they, though? They've been trading quite a few draft picks of late.
I haven't kept up, so.
Okay, so Detroit.
They still have the 2 first. That's about it. But
I think you said Detroit on the wide receiver show as well. So
I mean, Detroit get a guy opposite ARSB. Jamison Williams is. We still don't know what he is, but he can at least.
Carolina
be a
picked
squeeze
up an extra second in the Brian Burns trade. Maybe Carolina makes a move. T. Higgins becomes,
I was just
that
going to say,
bigger
man, does that
bodied
change our
receiver.
opinion of Carolina? Now you got 2 great receivers.
That's what I'm saying, right? Like,
They still got Bryce Young at quarterback. It changes nothing. If you put T. Higgins and Diontae Johnson on the Patriots, does that change your opinion of the Patriots? No.
Well, yeah, because I'm interested to see who they take at 3. So,
Even if whoever they took at 3, it still doesn't change my opinion.
oh, that's not true. Jaden Daniels with those 2 wide receivers, we've seen.
As of
things
right
from
now,
Jaden
it's going to be
Daniels.
Drake May, and I'm going to jump out my window
Well, yeah,
because I don't want that to happen.
That's a you problem.
Yeah, it is a me problem. I'm a Patriots fan. It is a me problem. Oh, painful. All right. Fun fact, the common theme on this show, no tight ends ever get talked about, and not a single one of them are highlighted. So here's just what happened with them.
There was nothing sexy about this tight end class at all.
Are you telling me that Mike Gesicki to the Bengals isn't sexy?
I do want to point out.
Here's
I do want to point out.
I
I campaigned for that on this show last year, or on the tight end show last year.
Here's literally what I wrote down in terms of notes about that. It's Gesicki to the Bengals for another year of overhyping tight ends who go to Cincy.
Perfect.
That's exactly what it's going to be.
I'm all in. Irv Smith, baby.
Irv Smith to the Chiefs.
Even better, but I'm just saying last year I overhyped Irv Smith. This year, overhyping Mike Gesicki.
Love it. Beautiful. Dalton Schultz resigns with the Texans. Hunter Henry back with the Patriots. Noah Fant back with the Seahawks. Jonnu Smith signs with the Dolphins 2 for 8.4. Gerald Everett to the Bears in a 2-year deal. Drew Sample becomes one of 2 Bengals tight ends to be under contract. 3 for 10.5 to Drew Sample. Mike Gesicki, the other guy. Colby Parkinson, 3 for 22. Why?
Paid 15 guaranteed, baby.
That was a big surprising move.
Why?
Tyler Higbee, man, he's getting old. Stay healthy. I don't know.
Colby Parkinson is the answer?
He tore his ACL in the playoffs last year. Higbee did. So they're looking
Guys.
at him as a pup guy. So.
Guys, 3 for 22? That's a Will Dissly contract.
And it's Josh Oliver money.
That's insane. That's insane. Speaking of Will Dissly, still getting decently paid.
Got paid again.
3 for 14. Does Will Dissly have blackmail or something? Why is he getting paid?
It was a good day to be a Seahawks tight end because they are now starting on 3 teams, including the Seahawks in the NFL.
Yeah. Irv Smith to the Chiefs. Zach Ertz to the Commanders, and Harrison Bryant to the Raiders. None of these guys you're having on your fantasy team or you're happy about outside of Dalton Schultz. Maybe. It doesn't matter.
Zach Ertz is interesting just in that offense.
Is it, though? Is it?
Who?
Zach Ertz.
Zach Ertz.
Zach Ertz 2 years ago, before the ACL, he was 5th percentile yard after the catch. He couldn't move anymore. And then he came back.
That's been the MO since Philly.
Right. But he comes back from the ACL and he can move less than he was able to move before the ACL. And they pepper him with targets for 4 weeks before they finally say, "Oh wait, we got Trey McBride.
We drafted this kid a few years ago.
Oh my God, use him."
Zach Ertz is one of my favorites, but the poor guy can't move anymore. It's just sad.
You guys know I'm guilty of when I write articles about people, I get excited, and I did a lot of the tight end writing. So I'm like, I don't know, this Colby Parkinson thing could be interesting. Will Dissly might be interesting.
Shut up.
I do want to throw out, Joe, I think Hunter Henry in a Browns-esque Alex Van Pelt offense, there could be the touchdowns there if they have a quarterback.
Ryan,
I know.
I want you to look me in the eye and tell me that week 1, Hunter Henry looks like David Njoku, minus the skin color.
Here's what I'm going to tell you.
I need you to tell me that.
Here's what I'm going to tell you. Week 1, Hunter Henry, probably my stream of the week.
Nice. Do you realize that last year, before the offense got completely dysfunctional in New England, the first 3 games of the season, I should say, Henry had over 50 yards in each of those games. He had a pair of touchdowns, and then the whole thing, went down the drain. But he still showed the ability to play. It was so broken, their entire offense and their personnel. I mean, he's going to be 30 this year, and he's clearly not the player he was. But, man, to judge him on what happened in that mess of an offense last year, that's tough.
See, Jim, I'm happy you're here, and you've been an awesome guest, but just let me be irrational about my team. Just let me be irrational, all right?
Joe literally just said if they had Tee Higgins and Diontae Johnson, he wouldn't be happy. What can we do at this point?
Yeah, dude. Are you kidding me? Do you know we have running the organization? The fucking Wiggles could run that organization better than what we have currently. It's insane. All right. Notable moves on defense, because there was a shit ton of them. To wrap up quick.
Good moves, too.
Very good moves. The Giants acquire Brian Burns from Carolina for a 2nd and 5th round pick. They signed Burns to a 5-year, $141 million deal. He got his ass paid. I don't know if he deserves that much money, but Brian Burns is a fantastic edge rusher. Good get for the Giants. Danielle Hunter to the Texans, 2 for $49. Got his ass paid too. Danielle Hunter, one of the best edge rushers when he's healthy. Chris Jones re-signs with the Chiefs, the richest defensive tackle contract in NFL history, 5 years, $158. Justin Madubuike re-signs with the Ravens, 4 for $98. Leonard Williams back with the Seahawks, 3 for $64. That feels rich for him.
Mm-hmm.
The best one, in my opinion.
I knew you were waiting. You were waiting.
Oh, Christian Wilkins to the Raiders. Yikes. Holy shit, is that defensive line?
That is going to put the fear of God in opposing quarterbacks with Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins coming right at him.
And then you know what Antonio Pierce about to do? He's about to go draft Braden Fisk, that D tackle out of Florida State. 300 pounds, 4'7", 840. Yeah. That's what's about, and they're gonna double it up and go Byron Murphy. Why not? That defensive line is gonna look insane next year. Patrick Queen to the Steelers, 3 years, $41. Jordan Brooks to the Dolphins, 3 years, $26. Frankie Louvu, Commanders, 3 for $31. Jalen Johnson back with the Bears, 4 for $76. Xavier McKinney to the Packers, a huge get for them. C.J. Gardner-Johnson back with the Eagles, the only team that's ever used him correctly. But that was also with a different defensive coordinator, so we'll see if they decide to actually put him at his correct position of safety and not slot corner. Darnell Savage to the Jaguars. Sneaky good, cheap safety to get for the Jaguars there. And to wrap it up, who won free agency so far, Jim?
It's a quarterback-driven league. You got to say the Falcons, right? I mean,
ATL.
That's where it starts. That's where it ends. A lot of great ads, especially at running back by teams, but I got to go with the quarterback.
Ryan?
Nothing to add. The Falcons likely just won the NFC South. It's the Falcons.
Yeah.
Josh?
I mean, I'm contractually obligated to say the Eagles and getting Saquon Barkley, right? But
you're not, though.
Anytime, yeah, right. Anytime you can pluck a franchise quarterback, quote unquote, off of free agency, yeah, it's the Falcons. Let's be honest here.
I'm Raiders all the way, simply off the Christian Wilkins signing. Do you know how much bet?
Plus, they got a franchise quarterback.
And Gardner Minshew, dog. Look out, woof goes Gardner Minshew. Honestly, like that one Christian Wilkins signing, I saw that and I was like, oh, that's bad for that's bad for every other. Also, spoiler, Max Crosby's my defensive IDP 1 next year. Just spoiler alert.
40 sacks.
Michael Strahan's sack record, TJ Watt's sack record, gone. See ya. That Max Crosby's obliterating that next year. Gone. Beautiful. Jim, thanks for coming on, man.
Oh, excited to be here. Had a great time talking with everybody. So, yeah, thanks for having me on.
I hope you enjoyed. Yes, please make sure to follow Jim at Jim Coventry, NFL. Again, small station, Sirius XM, Rotowire. It's really hard to find them. I suggest Mozilla Firefox if you want to find it. They're a little old, out of date. So... I heard Ryan was using Mozilla Firefox up until about 3 years ago. So that was really concerning for someone who's only 40 and didn't know that Google Chrome existed. So shout out Ryan.
Wait, Google has a browser?
Good joke, Jim.
Sorry.
I love that. Jim's still on Internet Explorer. What's it called now? It's not even called Internet Explorer. Microsoft Edge.
Oh, I was like,
they have Windows 95. Is that still okay?
I think Marlia likes Edge. I'm not even I'm not joking. I think
use it at work. I can't stand it.
Okay, I was gonna say I'm Chrome all the way now, but I think she prefers Edge.
You can download Chrome on any laptop in the world. Fun fact. Now, I don't know about Jim's dial-up internet he's using. I'm not sure if that will still work, but you can try. Follow Jim at Jim Coventry NFL. Josh, the one Hudsonian, Ryan, the Fantasy 5, myself, Joe _Zollo, but more importantly, Indy Fuels. So it makes me look really good with my bosses, and that would be great. Thank you. Appreciate that. Next week, our annual intro to Dynasty episode. No Ryan next week, and potentially not this guy, because apparently he has an event that he has to go to.
So apparently Ryan is going to be on next week. Because
I was just going to say, why am I out next week?
I don't know. It says no Ryan
that's
next
what
week.
that's what we were
doing
talking about with the initial.
Yeah.
Yep.
Joe has to go
if
to
he's out,
Twin
you're in.
Peaks.
If Joe's out, I'm in. Absolutely.
I got to go to Twin Peaks for an event. Twin Peaks is a sponsor.
Oh, no.
So, oh no, I have to go to Twin Peaks. So get free food and watch March Madness basketball. Oh no. We'll have Casey Kasem on and
great.
Iowa Mike as well, doing your Dynasty right to help you get started the right way. This is normally when I like to be on because my Dynasty team is an absolute pile of shit, but I'll just watch the video back and learn a lot.
I remember that's what Josh's plan was this show was about you learning. So now you just get to learn from afar.
Yeah, I get to learn from afar. Again, this is for, people that have never started Dynasty to those that have been, in Dynasty just even for a little bit, 3-5 years. Like, we can always learn, and learning from Casey and Mike are two very fun people to have on. For Jim, Josh, Ryan, myself, you can follow Club Fantasy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Club Fantasy FFL. The URL is clubfantasyffl.com. Always remember, defense wins championships. Offense wins fantasy football. We will see you next